So I want to go over real quick what my bottom looked like. I've had several bottoms, emotional bottoms and alcoholism bottoms. And that's the perspective I come from. So we're talking about narcissism, right? But unfortunately, the place I come from is that I'm blessed, actually, to say. I'm happy that alcoholism became a part of my life many, many years ago, because that is what alerted me to my need for recovery, my need for 12-step recovery, which in my experience now is the only thing that can rid someone of narcissism, that can give them the tools, the humility, and the tools to fight these narcissistic tendencies, these narcissistic thoughts that are still part of us because they were in me since I was a child, but today I know how to manage those. I don't behave that way anymore. A lot of people get really ticked off when I say this stuff. There's no cure for NPD. They write in all caps, and I hide those comments because I don't agree. I think that the lifestyle of humility and, for me, prayer and constant reminding of myself, dear higher power, please remove from me this unselfishness, dishonesty, self-will, self-seeking, fear. Keep me divorced from these things. That goes through my head multiple times every single day, every single night, every single morning. When you do that for years, you don't think that's going to keep you away from unselfish behaviors, dishonesty? It does. I feel bad even embellishing today. And I actually have to go the next day and correct myself if I embellish on a detail. But what did a bottom look like for me? I'm going to go through a bottom, what that looked like for me, and perhaps, what that could look like for someone who's in active narcissism, who's really living an extremely selfish, self-centered, damaging life. Now, there's a million different, a huge spectrum of narcissism out there, right? Full-blown NPD and all these sorts of different mixes, and the spread is massive. I'm going to go over my personal experience, what my bottoms felt like to me, and what caused me ultimately to reach out to change. We cannot force an alcoholic, an addict, an extreme narcissist. We can't force these people to have a bottom. If we could figure that out, we could solve all suffering in the world, in my opinion. I mean, if we could make someone, that's called step one, surrendering. If we could make someone surrender and say, wow, I cannot manage my life. I'm helpless. Tell me what to do. Please, I'm willing to do anything, whatever it takes. Sometimes that's not even enough. But if we can't even bring them to that place, if we could just bring them to that place, I mean, oh my gosh, we could help so many people. We could help millions and millions and millions of people. We can't. Someone has to decide that for themselves. I used to try to get sober, want to change my life, the way I treated people and drinking alcohol and all these other things. I used to want to change it for my kids, for a girlfriend, because I felt bad for hurting my parents over and over and over again. It was not enough. It was only until I got to the place where I personally was so scared, so traumatized, so alone, in so much pain and fear, that I was willing to experience a paradigm shift. I was willing to have a spiritual awakening. I was willing to do whatever it took. Join a cult. I don't care. I was going to do whatever it took if it promised me a better life and a better way of living, no matter how painful it was. Because, guys, there was no way out. Either way sucked. To keep drinking and treating people that way sucked. To change was scary as hell. There was no guarantee it was going to make everything better. I just trusted that doing something different was going to help. And it did. But so here's what my bottoms were like, okay? So I started drinking when I was 12, 13 years old. Ever since I was younger than that, third grade or so, I remember feeling a sense that I was different than other people. And I turned that around in my head and made it like I was better than other people. Long story short, I was superior. There was something special and unique about me. Other people didn't understand me. Big sign of developing narcissism. And not only that, I needed to be validated as special and cool. And that became from women, from being the center of attention at parties. Especially from women, though. Anything I could do, and alcohol helped me to do that. Alcohol made me more jovial. It made me feel more ballsy. I could approach women and get them to talk to me and things like that. And that created a lot of superficial exploitative relationships, another key tenet of narcissism. So I became your classic, chauvinistic party boy womanizer. And that started in my teenage years, went all through my 20s. Lack of empathy. Big time. I don't think I was the worst at this, but yeah, I would leave women in terrible situations and not care and not understand why I should care, not give a second thought about it. In fact, I thought the fact that they cared so much was weird, and it almost gave me a little bit of confidence boost that they cared so much, that they were so broken up over it, because I must be special and unique and awesome, and off I went. This is many, many years ago. So please hold your comments. I mean, we're talking 10, 5. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Some of these might have been 5 years ago, but I've been in recovery now about 4.5 years. So 5+ years ago, that was me. Identity disturbance, another key tenet of narcissism. I didn't really know who I was or what I was about. All I knew was that I needed attention. I was a taker. I wanted to take as much as I could. I always felt empty and bored. I couldn't sit still in my own skin. I don't know what it was. I just had to keep filling myself with pleasure, with validation. I wanted, to be on 5 or 6, 7 dating apps and get liked even while I had a girlfriend all the time. I wanted to feel a sensation of being drunk. I wanted, these massive daydreams of grandiosity and vengeance and heroism, and I'm going to conquer the world and make billions of dollars and date Russian ballerinas. This stuff also helped to kind of quell that inner turmoil I always felt. Vulnerability to life transitions. Yeah, whenever like something didn't go like I wanted it to, like a woman actually left me or some massive change happened in my life, I could not handle it. I mean, things had to go my way or I would freak the hell out. Like I had to have the world working perfect. I had to be the puppet master all the time. And that's part of that, where that manipulation came in. So I lived this terrible way, this highly narcissistic way. I think I was full-blown NPD for all those years. But I'm blessed that alcoholism was part of my story, because I started drinking alcoholically pretty much from the first time I drank alcohol. I blacked out. And I pretty much half the time I drank, I would black out. And that went all through my 20s and my early 30s. I got to the point where I had no friends. I would burn relationships with my behaviors I did while drinking. I mean, I would even call clients and things like this while blackout drunk. Again, this is many, many, many years ago. I burned relationships. Women thought and knew, word got around finally that I was toxic, that I was not someone you want to hook up with. So the people I did get with were also very toxic, or someone you probably wouldn't want to, be around, not good people. So my whole life was surrounded by not good people. I had no real friends, just drinking or using buddies. I was living in an extremely poor state. I mean, my health was bad. My living quarters were just very bad, very embarrassing. And my poor daughter would sleep with me there at the time. It was in an unfinished basement. And thank God, my wonderful best friend I did have left. Awesome guy. He put me up down there, but I made his life miserable too with my antics while I was drunk. So I was living in this unfinished basement. I didn't know where to go. I had lost jobs. I'd burned bridges, burned relationships. Thankfully I still had my child in my life, but I just couldn't put out. I couldn't care for her like she needed me to. I ended up in rehab during the holidays one time, and I still hadn't hit bottom. I just went there because I didn't want to go to jail. This is back in 2012 because I'd gotten 2 DUIs in 6 months. Didn't want to go to jail. My company I was with at the time, blew that job, sent me to rehab. I spent the holidays there. After I got out of rehab, it was right after New Year's, I decided to stay down there because I met a girlfriend in rehab who was very attractive and gave me a lot of validation and sense of being superior to other people and better and unique. And I started drinking again within a week or two and just wanted to gallivant around with her and burn as much time as I could before I had to go back to work. That still wasn't a bottom. My bottoms didn't happen until about 4.5, 5 years ago, my true bottoms. And that's when one night I had gone out drinking to a work function. It was a happy hour thing. I got incredibly drunk. I was kissing some strange woman on the dance floor in front of all these work colleagues and network colleagues. Super embarrassing stuff. I came home that night. My girlfriend at the time, we got in a big argument. I think I might have not meaning to, but just kind of shoved her to get away from me. I've never been a physically abusive guy. That was scary enough and sad enough. The police came because of the noise. Split us up. Said one of us had to leave. That happened. And then I decided to call 911 like 8, 10, 15 times. I think it was 15 literally, and begged them to please let my girlfriend come back home. And then I said I wanted Taco Bell. This is super embarrassing, but I'm a transparent guy today. It was extremely embarrassing. I ended up being taken in. They came and arrested me. They're trying to be nice about it. I woke up and I was sort of blacked out this whole time, halfway in and out, woke up in a jail cell. And this is like the third or fourth time in my life that I've woken up in a jail cell. And I was trying to hide my tears, crying beneath my little tiny stinky rag they gave me, crying in the metal steel shower, trying to get away from the guys so I could cry. I felt so scared, so alone. And granted, this wasn't the first time. This had happened 4 or 5 times before in my life. I'd been to rehab during the holidays. I'd lost jobs. I'd not spent enough time with my child. I'd chosen drinking over my child. This is 10 plus years ago. Many, many times left her waiting for me. It took all this, but it took so many years to finally come to a head that night. And the story's not over. Because yes, I gave up that night. I said, surrender. I have to do things differently. I'd heard about AA before. I started going to AA. Where do things go off the rails, guys? I thought that drinking was my problem. I thought the substance, once this substance that kept, I thought, sabotaging me was out of my life, then I'd be okay. Here's the thing I came to realize later on, after about 6 months of sobriety, when I was still hurting people, still behaving like an asshole, still fucking up, is that I made the worst of my mistakes, the choices I made when I was sober. It's when I was sober that I planned to go out drinking. It's when I was sober that I planned on how to steal money, not just to drink, just because I felt entitled to it. It's when I was sober that I felt this entitlement, this need for validation. That wasn't alcohol. The alcohol was just a tool. Remember, I had this black hole within me. I had this constant need to be validated by women, by money, by objects, grandiose thinking, thoughts, dreams. I was different. I was special. I was unique. I had to be recognized. That was still in me. How on earth? This is the one hard part about addiction. The alcohol became so powerful in my life that I thought it was a problem. It was a symptom of the problem. The problem was me. And yes, these feelings, call it narcissism, call it whatever you want. It was narcissistic NPD behavior. I don't care where it stemmed from. I don't care if it's abandonment or your parents were NPD. I don't care any of that crap, guys. I care about real solutions, okay? I behaved this way. I thought this way. I behaved like an NPD. I felt like an NPD, and I was screwing up my life. So I had to have a second and third bottom, emotional bottoms. And this is a real thing that you have in sobriety from substance, emotional sobriety. I'd have emotional bottoms where, holy crap, why am I not cured? Why am I not happy now? Why are people around me still in pain? Why am I still miserable? Why aren't I seeing, my child as much as I want to? Like, why don't I care about the things that truly matter? And this was several years back. I had to have those bottoms, and those happened several times. Many bottoms kept happening over and over again. The point, though, is that getting that substance out of my life, getting introduced to the 12 steps, is what woke me up enough to start recognizing those emotional bottoms. Does that make sense? If I hadn't been introduced to the 12 steps through my alcoholism, I would not have known what was going on. Does that make sense? It's like there's a saying in AA, the most miserable person in the world is someone with a belly full of beer and a brain full of AA. Well, AA, sobriety, recovery, there's lots of 12-step programs out there. It's not all about the substance. That's actually a very small part of it. Once the substance is out of your life, it's a guide for daily living. How do you live a good life? How do you not behave like an a-hole? And that's what the 12 steps are all about, is developing a spiritual connection with something bigger than yourself, realizing you are not the center of the universe. You are not. You learn to be small and humble and tiny, and you learn that all you have is 24 hours ahead of yourself and your daily actions. And you think crazy thoughts still. We all do. I have narcissistic thoughts sometimes that still come in my head, like naturally. But I can choose today to not behave those out, to not follow those out. And I say, dear God, keep me divorced from dishonesty, self-will, self-seeking, and fear. Help me be a kind and loving man. Love and tolerance is my code. Teach me how to live. Show me how to live, God. I trust you. I call it God. You can call it higher power, Mother Earth, whatever you want to. That's what 12 Steps teaches you. So I guess I'll try to describe to you a little bit about what an emotional bottom feels like. An emotional bottom, so this is the thing. Alcohol's out of your life. I'm not getting in legal trouble anymore. I'm still feeling these feelings. Life is a treadmill, and I've gotten used to this new speed. Alcohol's out of my life now. Okay, life is good. People think I'm making good money. I have a good career. Why am I still feeling this need? Why are these feelings still in me? What is this? And then you start to realize it's not it. This. is not making me happy. Back when I had those narcissistic, when I was living full blown, narcissistically, I thought I didn't even recognize this. This just felt natural. Don't you all feel like this? Don't you all have this hole you're trying to fill? What's discipline? I just need to, everything was just instinctual drives right now, right now, right now. Those emotional bottoms, I would get extremely depressed and miserable and feel bad about hurting people. And those are things I didn't feel before I had learned about 12 steps, before alcohol was out of my life. I didn't really have that empathy unless it was that I was, manipulating to get myself something. So what I'm trying to say is that we cannot force someone to have a bottom, whether they're a narcissist, they're an a-hole. I wish it was possible. I wish you could do it. I wish I could tell you how to do it. You cannot. In fact, the more you try to get someone to do that, the more they're going to push back and rebel and run away, and it's not going to work. So unfortunately, they have to get miserable. They have to get crushed enough by life. And it may never happen. For a lot of it, I'm blessed that I was alcoholic. I think a lot of alcoholics don't ever get sober. I mean, a lot of them just keep drinking and die of alcoholism or keep screwing up their life well into their 60s. Some of them don't come into recovery till they're 60, 70 years old. And they've blown up their whole life at that point and treated everyone ridiculously. I think people underestimate the narcissism involved in addiction, especially something like alcoholism, which is legal, which you can do out in the open, which you can, that bar hopping lifestyle, pushing other people's needs way on the back burner, putting yourself first all the time, philandering, stealing, lying on a daily basis. That's what narcissists do, and it becomes natural for you. So in my experience, a lot of alcoholics, addicts, you become a narcissist. Even if you weren't one before, you become one. And like I said, I had these feelings of inadequacy, of this black hole to fill well before I actually started drinking actively. But you can't make anyone have a bottom, okay? That's the whole point of this video. Mine came as a consequence of my drinking, and then I had to have further emotional bottoms where I kept hurting people. I kept finding myself in shitty situations, even though the substance was out of my life, until I realized I needed wholesale spiritual change. I needed to surrender entirely. I couldn't just not drink alcohol and go about my merry life. No, I needed to learn how to live. I needed recovery. I needed humility is the key word here. And humility, I thought, used to be a ridiculous, pathetic word. No, humility is the most beautiful word in the freaking language today. Humility is like peace to me. It realizes that I'm small. I really don't matter. I matter to the people who love me, and I can honor them by not doing what feels good, by doing what's right, by doing what I know is right and pleasing to my higher power, to my soul, to my loved ones. Regardless of how I feel in the moment, when I do what's right, I develop something that I never fucking knew I would have, and that's called dignity and self-respect. I'm laughing as I'm saying this right now. I never thought I'd be saying the words dignity, self-respect, like a healthy sense of dignity and self-respect. I almost said ego, but it's a healthy sense of ego, healthy narcissism. Okay, there is a level of that, which is, I believe in the good in myself. I know I'm capable of making good decisions because I've had practice at it. And because recovery has taught me to say these phrases over and over in my head, has burrowed into my head, and call it a cult, whatever you want, I'll take it any day, forever. Keep me divorced from dishonesty, self-will, self-seeking, and fear, God. Teach me how to live. Guide me in my recovery. Show me how to live. How can thy will be done, not my own? How can I best serve you? How can I best serve the world? How can I be the best person possible? Love and tolerance is my code. Help me, was I kind and loving to everyone today? I think that every single night when I pray. So this is crazy stuff, right? That's someone who behaved, and you just don't even know the way I lived my life, because I wish I could show you. I wish I had. I'm going to dig up some video clips. But, many, many, many years ago, I was an awful dude. Really bad. In fact, I just met with a friend the other day who knew me from back then. We went to a bar. I had a non-alcoholic beer. It was really delicious. 0.0. And she was going over how bad I was. And I didn't actually know that I had to make an amends to this person. And I did. I didn't know she felt so negatively about my behavior back then. Not today, but back then. And she still carried some of that with her. And I had to really make a big apology, and we had a really nice, heartfelt conversation. But, I was really a bad dude. Really terrible. So It's my experience that NPD, narcissism, can be treated, but the person needs to surrender, needs to have a bottom. Most narcs are not going to do that unless there's extenuating circumstances, whether it be financial ruin, whether it be addiction, something that brings them to their knees, that makes them open to having a psychic change. That's the only thing. There's diehard alcoholics you thought would never, ever, ever stop drinking. What makes them stop drinking? Psychic, spiritual experiences, a psychic change. That's the only thing that's ever worked. That's why AA, when done well, works so well. Get people sober for 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years. It literally changes your whole personality. Your whole way of being can change. But it takes daily work. It takes consistency. It's not a cure forever. And that's why it works so well. It's like getting therapy every day for the rest of your life, as long as you follow the program. So anyways, guys, I rambled on forever. My whole point was, how do you make a narcissist have a bottom? And my whole answer is, you can't. You got to wait for them to screw up their life enough that they're going to have it on their own, or they're just not. I'm sorry, that's probably a shitty answer, but you probably want to get this person out of your life until they decide to have that bottom. There's really nothing in my experience that you can do about it. And that's just my experience, dealing with narcissism and being a narcissistic addict for a lot of years. So anyhow, guys, that's all I got. If you liked what I had to say, if you liked all this rambling, please subscribe, please helps me a lot. I like to, before bed, just make a couple of these and ramble on and, share my experience, strength, and hope with you for an hour or so. So appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. I'm signing off. Have a wonderful night.